And I think it's all about finding your way with the right people, the right supports, close family around you to guide you.
At 41, Prince William has finally spoken about his mother's painful and hidden struggles, which the world had quietly wondered about for decades. His words have opened a long-closed chapter, bringing clarity to a story that was often clouded by silence and royal formality. And for the first time, he's chosen to address the emotional weight his mother carried and how it quietly shaped his own path. Why did he wait so long to speak? And what does this mean for the royal family? Join us as we uncover what Prince William revealed about his late mother. Princess Diana's final days. In the final days of Princess Diana's life, she was trying to find a sense of peace. After years of living under the microscope of royal expectations and relentless media attention, she had finally stepped away from official royal duties. She had divorced Prince Charles a year before, and even though that chapter was closed, the spotlight never left her. She spent time with her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, and also took breaks from the UK, often visiting friends or escaping to sun-soaked places where she could breathe a little more freely. And just before her death, she was vacationing in the south of France with Dodi Fayed. It seemed like she was trying to live on her own terms, but the cameras followed her everywhere. The paparazzi were aggressive, and no matter where she went, she couldn't escape the lenses. On the night of August 31st, 1997, Diana, Dodi, and their driver Henri Paul tried to flee the media chaos in Paris by taking a different route. They left the Ritz Hotel through the back entrance, hoping to lose the photographers. But as they sped through the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, the car crashed.
Diana, Princess of Wales, has been killed in a car accident, and that her partner, Dodi Fayed, has also been killed.
That crash would change the royal family forever. Keep watching to find out more. When the news broke, the world stopped. People gathered outside Buckingham Palace, laying flowers and lighting candles. It wasn't just the loss of a royal figure, it felt personal. For millions, Diana wasn't just a princess. She was someone who had shared her heart with the world. But while the public grieved, her sons were just boys. Prince William was only 15, Prince Harry was 12. And in that moment, their world broke in a way that couldn't be repaired. At first, there were no public statements from them. They remained silent as the royal family tried to manage the waves of grief crashing over the nation. And while the tabloids speculated and conspiracy theories surfaced, those boys were facing something more personal than any newspaper could capture. They had lost their mother, the woman who tucked them in, who held their hands, and who always tried to protect them from the very spotlight that followed her to the end. William, being the older of the two, felt the pressure more deeply. He was not only grieving, but also preparing for a future where he'd one day be king. That meant he had to carry himself with strength, even when everything inside him was shattered. Years later, he spoke about how he tried to stay busy, to keep moving forward, because he believed his mother would have wanted that. He didn't want to fall apart. But that didn't mean he wasn't broken inside. Harry, on the other hand, was numb. At 12, he didn't know how to process that kind of pain. Later, he also admitted that he barely cried, not because he wasn't sad, but because he was in shock. He couldn't understand how the person who made him laugh, who gave him hugs that made the world feel right, could be gone so suddenly. He saw strangers crying more than he was, and that confused him. He didn't realize then that grief sometimes hides behind silence. And as time moved on, both boys were expected to move on too. But grief doesn't follow a royal schedule. It stays with you, grows with you, and sometimes it waits until you're older to show up again. And for William, his mother's absence was felt most deeply during his milestones, including graduations, holidays, and his wedding day. He has said before that he missed her most when he was starting his own family. He wished she could have met Catherine, held his children, and watched him grow into the man she raised him to be. However, Harry carried his grief differently. Over time, it turned into anger. He felt let down, not just by the media, but by the silence around him. Nobody was talking about what had happened. Nobody helped him understand how to handle it. For years, he buried those emotions, but eventually, they surfaced. During his time in Afghanistan as a soldier, Harry began to unravel. He realized that the pain he had carried since he was 12 had never been dealt with. When the trauma came back, it hit him hard, and according to him, it felt like everything was bouncing off the walls inside his head. And it wasn't until years later that he started to understand what he had been carrying. He sought therapy, and he started to talk. That's when things began to change. Alongside his brother and Catherine, he founded Heads Together, a charity aimed at breaking the stigma around mental health. But even as they worked to help others, the memories of their mother remained. They didn't talk about her often, but when they did, it was clear how much they loved her. In a documentary called Diana, Our Mother, both William and Harry opened up about what she meant to them. They flipped through old photo albums she made, laughing at childhood pictures and remembering her warmth. One picture showed Diana hugging Harry tightly. He said he could still feel her hugs. That kind of love doesn't fade.
That sort of crazy laugh of where there was just pure happiness shown on her face.
William also spoke about the way Diana taught them compassion. She took them to homeless shelters and visited people living with AIDS. She wanted her sons to see the world outside the palace gates. And William has tried to carry that forward, raising his children with those same values. He talks about her to them, making sure they know the kind of person their grandmother was. But the weight of Diana's death has always been heavier for William. Because he is the future king, he must balance his personal pain with public duty. And that hasn't been easy. Every year, when the anniversary of her death comes around, the press reminds the world. And William is forced to remember publicly what he still grieves privately. In recent years, Diana's death shaped William and Harry in deeply personal ways. William chose to stay, leading with calm and compassion, while Harry walked away because he believed the same system that failed their mother was now failing his wife. Her loss became their turning point, as one moved forward through duty and the other through honesty. Even though their paths split, her values remain in both. William still carries her strength, and Harry still echoes her voice. Yet, even as the world tries to move on, some things still linger, and the questions surrounding her death remain the currency of conspiracies and predictions. Stay tuned as we dive more into this part of the story. Conspiracies and predictions about Princess Diana's death. After Princess Diana's death on August 31st, 1997, there were a lot of people who simply couldn't believe it was just a crash. It felt too sudden, too brutal, and too strange. And almost as soon as the news broke, so did the theories. People began whispering that there was more to her death than we were being told.
She was the most loved member of the royal family, if she still is even a member of the royal family.
Official investigations were quick to respond. Both Britain and France launched their own inquiries into what had really happened that night. In 1999, a French investigation concluded that Diana had died as a result of the crash in Paris, and not because of any foul play. Judge Hervé Stéphane, who led the French inquiry, made it clear that the paparazzi, who were often blamed, were actually not close to the car when it crashed. He ruled out the idea that they caused the accident. Going forward to 2008, after years of rumors and speculation, a British inquest finally gave its verdict. It called Diana's death an unlawful killing. According to the jury, the crash happened because the driver, Henry Paul, was under the influence of alcohol and was speeding, while also trying to escape the paparazzi. They added that Diana wasn't wearing a seatbelt, which made the crash even more deadly. They also noted that the car hit a pillar in the tunnel, which made the impact worse than it would have been otherwise. But even with this official explanation, not everyone was convinced. One of the loudest voices challenging the story was Mohammed Al-Fayed, the father of Dodi Al-Fayed, who had been Diana's partner and who also died in the crash. Mohammed believed with all his heart that his son and Diana were murdered. He thought the British royal family didn't want them to be together, and that they would go to great lengths to stop them. Then something even more chilling appeared: a note. In 2003, Paul Burrell, Diana's former butler, released a handwritten note that Diana had allegedly written back in 1993. In the note, she claimed that someone was planning an accident in her car, something that would cause brake failure and serious head injury. The note was shocking. Diana wrote that she believed this would be done so her husband, Prince Charles, could marry someone else. This wasn't the only time she had spoken about such fears. In 1995, she reportedly told her lawyer that she had been warned through reliable sources that both she and Camilla would be pushed aside, so Charles could eventually marry someone else, possibly Tiggy Legge Bourke, a former nanny who had worked with the royal family. Back then, the Anglican Church didn't allow divorced people to remarry in the church. So if Charles wanted to remarry, especially in a church ceremony, Diana felt she had to be removed from the picture. Then in 2004, the British police formed a special team called Operation Paget to get to the bottom of all these rumors and theories. The team was led by Commissioner John Stevens, and they looked into 175 different claims made by Mohammed Al-Fayed alone. Among the things they investigated was the question of whether British intelligence agencies MI5 or MI6 had any involvement in Diana's death. However, one name that came up a lot was Richard Tomlinson. He was a former MI6 officer who had been fired and even jailed for leaking secret information. Tomlinson claimed that MI6 had been watching Diana and that they had plans that looked eerily similar to how she died. He even mentioned a possible use of a strobe light to blind the driver. This was an idea that sounded like something out of a spy movie. Tomlinson also claimed that he had seen documents showing that MI6 had once planned to use this kind of method to kill a foreign leader, President Slobodan Milosevic of Serbia. And he stated that Henri Paul, the driver who died with Diana and Dodi, had connections with British intelligence. He also mentioned that one of Diana's bodyguards may have been an MI6 contact. But when he was brought before the inquest in 2008, Tomlinson admitted that he couldn't really remember the details. He stated that the plan he had seen might not have been for Milosevic at all, and that there wasn't any mention of a strobe light in the document. In fact, Operation Paget was given full access to MI5 and MI6 records, and they found that the plan he talked about wasn't even about Milosevic. It was about another Serbian figure, and it didn't involve cars or tunnels or flashlights. Even drafts of a book Tomlinson had written in the 1990s, long before The Inquest, didn't mention any car crash plot. They also found out that Tomlinson was arrested by French police in 2006, while they investigated his claims further, and they even took his personal files and computer. Nothing supported his allegations. A senior MI6 manager, referred to as Miss X during the inquiry, confirmed that MI6 didn't have any file on Diana or Dodi, and that there was no operation planned against them. In the end, the Operation Paget report dismissed Tomlinson's stories as exaggerated and said that they had probably fueled many of the wild conspiracy theories that followed Diana's death. But by the time this was announced, the world had already been spinning with these stories for over a decade. People wanted to believe that there was something more behind Diana's death because, to many, it just didn't make sense. And the truth is, Diana herself had given people a reason to be suspicious. That note, those fears, those recorded interviews. She had said more than once about how she felt unsafe. that she was being watched and that people were trying to silence her. When someone speaks like that and then dies in a violent, chaotic way, it's hard for people not to connect the dots, even if the facts say otherwise. However, let's rewind even further to the relationship that many believe was the root of Diana's sorrow and end. Because what happened next only added more mystery to the story. The marriage that led to her tragic end. Princess Diana and Prince Charles had a marriage that, from the outside, looked magical, but behind the palace walls it was nothing close to that. They got married in 1981, and almost from the beginning, things felt off. Diana was young. She was only 20, and she stepped into a royal world she didn't fully understand. Charles, on the other hand, was 12 years older and had a long, complicated history with Camilla Parker Bowles, a woman he never truly let go of. Prince William saw how things unfolded and was there to witness his mother's journey into royal life. But long before he was born, Charles and Diana's bond had taken shape under the public eye. By 1980, their connection had deepened. They were both invited to a weekend gathering in the countryside, and that was when Charles truly started paying attention to Diana. Soon after, he invited her on a sailing trip aboard the royal yacht Britannia. Their relationship advanced quickly, leading to a visit to Balmoral Castle. There, Diana was introduced to the royal family. The Queen, Prince Philip, and the Queen Mother all found her charming and suitable for Charles, which encouraged him to move forward with the courtship. On February 6, 1981, Charles proposed at Windsor Castle. Diana accepted, but they kept the engagement secret for over 2 weeks. On February 24th, they finally announced it publicly. She left her job as a nursery assistant and moved into Clarence House, which belonged to the Queen Mother, and later into Buckingham Palace. Despite the grandeur, Diana found life inside the palace isolating. According to royal biographer Ingrid Seward, Diana battled deep loneliness and pressure. Even though she was preparing to marry the future king, she felt trapped in a world she didn't yet understand. Still, Diana made history. She became the first English woman in over 300 years to marry the heir to the throne and the first royal fiancé to have held a paying job before her engagement. Her first public appearance with Charles took place in March 1981 at a charity ball, where she met Princess Grace of Monaco. Grace offered her kind words and advice, sensing the nervous energy Diana carried. Then, on July 29, 1981, Diana officially became the Princess of Wales at St. Paul's Cathedral. About 600,000 spectators gathered along the streets of London, and around 750 million people watched the ceremony on television across the globe. She wore an ivory silk taffeta gown with a 25-foot train, one of the longest in royal wedding history. Her dress, worth approximately £9,000, became iconic. Yet, even on that day, subtle signs of tension showed. Diana accidentally switched Charles' names during her vows. She also made a powerful decision to omit the traditional vow to obey her husband, something that was unheard of at that time. After the ceremony, the Queen welcomed Diana by lending her the Queen Mary's Lover's Knot tiara. The newlyweds moved into Kensington Palace and Highgrove House, but the fairy tale facade soon faded. By November 1981, Diana was expecting her first child. And in January 1982, during her first trimester, she fell down the stairs at Sandringham. She later confessed that it wasn't an accident. She had been frustrated, overwhelmed, and felt invisible. Although she only had bruises, the incident was alarming. On June 21, 1982, she gave birth to Prince William. Following William's birth, Diana struggled with postpartum depression. She spoke about feeling emotionally lost and disconnected. Mental health wasn't openly discussed at the time, so many failed to understand what she was going through. Nevertheless, she was determined to break royal parenting traditions. When she went on a tour to Australia and New Zealand, she insisted on bringing baby William. Usually, royal children stayed behind, but Diana wanted to raise her children her own way, and the public admired her for it. On September 15, 1984, she gave birth to Prince Harry. Diana later recalled that she and Charles were happiest during her pregnancy with Harry. But after his birth, their marriage grew distant again. Charles had reportedly hoped for a daughter, so when Diana learned she was having another boy, she kept it a secret from him until the birth, and his reaction crushed her. Diana played an active role in raising William and Harry. She chose their names, picked their schools, fired a nanny she disliked, and hired another whom she trusted more. And unlike previous royal parents, she dropped them off at school herself when she could. Her approach was modern and deeply human. However, by 1987, cracks in their marriage were publicly visible. The press began calling them the Glums because of their strained appearances together. In 1989, Diana confronted Camilla Parker Bowles at a party for Camilla's sister. It was a rare moment of confrontation from someone who usually stayed composed in public. She told Camilla she knew what was going on between her and Charles and said she wasn't stupid. That moment symbolized a breaking point. Then by 1992, the release of Andrew Morton's book, Diana, Her True Story, exposed everything. It included personal stories of Diana's struggles, self-harm, loneliness, and the emotional wounds inflicted by her husband's ongoing attachment to Camilla. Initially, Diana denied contributing to the book, but after her death, Morton revealed she had been his source all along. Later that same year, a tape of a private conversation between Diana and James Gilby, nicknamed Squidgygate, was leaked. The recording captured intimate conversations and added fuel to tabloid fire. Soon after, another scandal, Camillagate, also emerged, revealing phone recordings between Charles and Camilla. Their emotional affair was no longer a secret. Public opinion changed, and the once enchanted view of the royal couple began to sour. However, Charles and Camilla's relationship went back decades, long before Diana came into the picture. They were close before his marriage, and despite efforts to stay apart, they resumed their affair by 1986, and Diana knew about it. She once found a bracelet Charles had custom-made for Camilla just days before the wedding. It devastated her, and she even considered calling off the ceremony, but her sisters urged her to go through with it, saying it was too late to back out. Around the same time, Diana began a relationship with James Hewitt, a former cavalry officer and her riding instructor. Because of his red hair, rumors swirled that Hewitt was Harry's father, but Hewitt firmly denied it, stating their relationship began 2 years after Harry's birth. By December 9, 1992, Prime Minister John Major announced that Charles and Diana had officially separated. Though technically still married, they led separate lives. Diana later revealed that before her relationship with Hewitt, she had fallen deeply in love with her protection officer, Barry Manakee. When he was suddenly reassigned, she was devastated. She even suggested in private recordings that she might have left everything to be with him. However, as her marriage continued to crumble, Diana began to distrust those around her. In 1993, she wrote a letter to her butler, Paul Burrell, claiming she believed Charles was in love with his personal assistant, Tiggy Legge Bourke. She even feared Charles wanted her gone, possibly so he could remarry. While there was never any proof, the intensity of her fear showed how much the situation had worn her down. In 1994, Charles admitted in a televised interview that he had been unfaithful. He stated that he only resumed his relationship with Camilla after his marriage had irretrievably broken down. Then, in 1995, Diana chose to tell her truth. In her famous Panorama interview, she said, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." That line became iconic. The Queen soon stepped in and urged the couple to divorce. And on August 28, 1996, the divorce was finalized. Diana lost her royal title but remained Princess of Wales. She kept her apartment at Kensington Palace and continued raising William and Harry. Even though the marriage had ended, the public's fascination with her only grew. Diana's life remained under constant scrutiny. The paparazzi followed her everywhere. She became a global humanitarian, working with AIDS patients and walking through minefields to raise awareness. Yet the questions never stopped, and these questions and public curiosity led to her tragic end. Furthermore, Diana's troubled marriage and tragic death felt like 2 parts of one heartbreak. She had once been a young woman who simply wanted to be loved. But by the time she died in a car crash in 1997, chased by paparazzi in Paris, the world was left to wonder if she had been failed by the very system she married into. For Prince William, the pain didn't end with his mother's funeral. What haunted him wasn't just the loss itself, it was the fear that history could repeat itself. As he grew older, married Kate Middleton, and saw her step into the same royal spotlight that once consumed his mother, that fear only deepened. He wasn't just grieving the past, he was trying to protect the present. He wanted to shield Kate from the same pressures and pain that had once shattered Princess Diana. So do you think Diana's story would have ended differently if she hadn't married into the royal family? And what moment in Diana's life do you think changed her the most? And why? Drop it in the comments section below. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.